In this presentation, I'm going to be talking about a method that it's possible to use to check through machine translation output, including large amounts of MT output, in order to try and detect repeated errors that the system seems to be producing. And that, in turn, can be used to produce automatic corrections so that the post editor is not so heavily burdened with such a large number of mistakes to correct. So this activity, which is one of the things we're going to be doing in this week's session, touches on the possibility of investigating features of language by means of what is known as corpus analysis software, and we're going to be experimenting with one such system in the session. So what we're going to be doing will be for demonstration purposes, although in real life any evidence of repeated errors would be fed back to the MT developer so that the system could be improved, or very possibly so that the output would be put through a series of automatic post-editing rules before it got sent on to the post-editors, or indeed before it got used, before it was made available to the end users. This activity builds on the ideas suggested in a couple of articles which are available on a blog called Empty Pages, and the details of these articles, they're both very short, can be found in the references section at the end. Now, as I've mentioned, websites such as Facebook and eBay, for example, have for a little time now been trying to develop their own MT tools. Skype is another one, of course, as you may be aware. And these are fine-tuned to translate precisely the type of language which gets used on those sites. So they specialize in social media posts or product reviews, for example. And the way they do this is generally by creating and training a statistical or indeed a neural MT engine on the basis of large amounts of bilingual and monolingual texts. And these are, of course, are of the same type as the material that the MT system is ultimately designed to translate. However, the training of an MT system in this way can be supplemented by using analysis tools such as the ones that are going to be featured briefly later on in this presentation, and that we're going to practice with this week, in order to identify common mistakes and perhaps other unusual features that are produced by the system. And as I mentioned, this analysis can help the developers to correct any mistakes that are identified, thus improving translation quality, or, as the case may be, reducing the burden on post-editors. Now, I'm going to go through an example of this in a little bit of detail, and indeed it is the example that we're going to be working on in class. So this is working on a large collection of Amazon product reviews. Now, although the majority of Amazon reviews are made available in English, it's of value, of course, to make them available to speakers of other languages. There are, of course, 5 or 6 different versions of Amazon. There's the Japanese version, for example, there's a French one, there's a German one, there's a Spanish one, maybe 1 or 2 more as well. So for that to happen, it can either be by means of on-demand MT, so something is translated when somebody needs it, or using the MT followed by post-editing model. And the MT engine in each case can be improved by adding further training data as and when this becomes available, or indeed by the addition of automatic post-editing rules, which might be used to correct frequently occurring errors. This is an example of an Amazon product review. It's for a type of baby food, turkey vegetable dinner. Doesn't sound terribly appetizing, but I guess for the right target audience it's probably okay. What we have is a large collection of these, and they can be used in order to detect mistakes. This one that we're looking at the moment, this is the original one, so any mistakes are owing to the reviewer making them him or herself, or mistyping or whatever. Okay. Now the software we're going to be using is called the Sketch Engine, and it's a collection of a corpus analysis software that we're going to use in order to detect, hopefully, even just a few errors by comparing incorrect MT output to similar but correct output. And the way we're going to be doing this is by using what's known as the keywords function. Now, in this software, a keyword list is created on the basis of two frequency lists. One for the correct version, the original version, and the other for the translated version. Now, these two collections of text, or corpora as they're sometimes referred to, are known as, first of all, the focus corpus, and that is the corpus that we're interested in analyzing. In this case, this is the translated texts. And then the reference corpus, which is going to form the point of comparison, and that is the set of original reviews. Now, in this case, the collection of reviews that I'm using does in fact only exist in the original. So that is the reference corpus. So what I've done for the purpose of the class exercise, I've generated another set of Amazon reviews, and I've done this by translating the originals into another language chosen pretty much at random, and then back into English. So we have two sets of the same, consisting of the same reviews. One set is original, the reference corpus, and the other set is translated twice, in fact, and that's the focus corpus. Now, on the basis of this, we can produce word lists, and as you see, these word lists are simple listings of every word that occurs in each of the two corpora, in order of frequency. And if you compare these very quickly, you'll see they're pretty similar, although as you get down to about item 9, 10, 11, you see that small differences in frequency start to occur, and of course that's not particularly surprising. So we have the Amazon original text, the word list for them on the left, the reference corpus, and then on the right we have the word list for the translated texts, the focus corpus. And what Sketch Engine can do, if you ask not for word lists but for a keyword list, it will, using a mathematical formula, it will compare the two, and it will produce a keyword list. And the point of keywords is that they are in some ways characteristic for a particular corpus, so that a word which occurs frequently in a corpus, but in a focus corpus, but does not occur nearly so frequently in the corresponding reference corpus, will come very high on the list, because it's very characteristic of that particular corpus. So take a look at this. I've produced the keyword list and displayed it on the right hand side, and it's basically compared the frequency for each word in that list, in those two lists in the previous slide. And what I didn't say about those lists is that they're much longer than the little extract that I displayed. They would consist of, thousands of items. And it turns out that the most key word in the translated corpus is exceptional. So in some way, that word is has a very special place in the translated text. It means in practice it's occurring a lot more frequently in the translated texts than it did in the original ones. Now you see, it's not actually the most frequently occurring word in absolute terms, because if we go down the list, we'll see that fries occurs 133 times and exceptional only 36. But the point about fries is that it occurs more frequently in the reference text as well. So the difference between its rate of occurrence in the two corpora is not as great as is the case with the word exceptional. So these words are arranged in order of keyness, and the keyness score, that's just called the score on the right hand side. So the most key words, the words with the highest keyness, as it's called, come at the top of the list. So if a word is unusual in terms of how frequently it occurs, and indeed if a word in general terms occurs frequently, by looking at its use we can check to see if there's anything unusual about it, and if there is, then that can be marked possibly as a frequently occurring error. So what we need to do, you'll notice that each of these is a clickable link, and if we click through on one of them, we'll be taken to a list of every occurrence of that word. And I've done that with the word earth. Just go back for a second. As you see, earth is number 5 in the list, occurring 15 times. And there's an extract from the list that you're taken to. You see it there. It starts, their first jar of the earth they loved, ... It's just a very short extract in each case. And there's something rather odd about that, I'm sure you'll agree. So if we compare that phrase, and that's from the translated corpus, if we compare it with the corresponding sentence in the original, we find out that what it actually said is their first earth's best jar they loved was straight sweet potatoes. Okay, so it's having difficulty translating what in fact is a product name, Earth's Best. And that's quite useful information for the developer, because obviously they will want the product names to come up correctly when translated. So the developer can add an automatic post-editing rule to ensure that particular phrase, which in this case happens to be a product name, will be translated correctly. Okay, so that's just a quick run through this approach to analysing translated discourse, and we'll be trying it out for ourselves as part of what we're doing in this week's session. Thank you very much.